Hello, 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 beautiful unicorns. Yana Kasperczak, your certified professional performance and spiritual awakening core energy coach. It has been my soul's purpose to help women, to help you get your shit together so you can break free from the mental prison that you find yourself in and build a life and a business that you're not only proud of, but excited to wake up to every single day, and stop procrastinating and putting brakes on or snoozing on your life and on your business, and start doing the things that you actually want to do, and the self-sabotage, and live the life and build a business that you actually want. A lot of people don't allow themselves to have the things that they want to have, to experience the things that they want to experience, to do the things that they want to do for many reasons, but it really comes down to their mindset, the stories that they have, that they're carrying within themselves, that allow them to have those things or don't allow them to have those things. And the allowing is an internal game, even though it feels like it's external. And the sooner that you start to work on your internal world and start to understand that everything you want is yours, and what's stopping you is your mindset. So that's why today we're going to be talking about the villains in your life. So that's the topic for today. And the villains, quote unquote, in your life are all of those villains that are within your mind. The villains that keep you trapped, the villains that cause you to look at things and people outside of you and blame them and the external experiences for the life that you are currently living and experiencing, instead of understanding that each one of those villains, each one of those thoughts, especially the bad ones, because those are the ones that we don't want, those are the ones that bring us down, can even bring us down to our knees, that each one of them is actually a powerful teacher. The greater the pain, the greater the lesson. And at the same time, when you have learned your lessons and you start to experience pain, you start to learn and really, really understand and practice what you've learned and understood, that pain is inevitable and suffering is optional. So the story that I want to share with you is, I'll keep it really short and sweet. Some of you can relate to this, or might relate to this one of these days. So I have been doing and not necessarily balancing it with enough being, with enough rest. It's just been going, like Energizer Bunny, without recharging my batteries and letting those muscles rest and relax. So in the process of doing a lot, I ended up overexerting my back to a point where I could not, barely could move over the weekend. I am much better today, but I've had help and I've had support to get through this. And I've noticed the biggest reminder through this process was that there was no suffering. There was just a momentary lapse of suffering that I experienced on Sunday morning when I woke up and I was still in so much pain. I could barely move. I wobbled my way downstairs to the basement, and I just went into level 1, the victim, and I caught myself crying. And that was a great reminder of how I would have dealt with this not even that long ago versus how I dealt with it now. Now I experience a momentary reminder of pain and suffering. Pain is of the physical body, suffering is of the mind. And I allow myself to feel that suffering for a moment because it's a great reminder, it's a great teacher, and a great reminder of the past, of how I would have been and how I am not in that way anymore, how I see that there is pain, but I did not suffer with it because the suffering causes, is basically, this is how I'll put it. The suffering is the feeling and the expression of guilt, shame, all the shoulds, the could-haves, all the thoughts and feelings of I'm not good enough, that I should be doing something else, and how dare I spend the weekend resting my pains and aches versus getting things done. Hey Kimberly, how are you doing, beautiful? So here are the villains that I wanted to share with you. Most of these villains that we experience are internal. And actually, I would say all the villains that we experience are internal. And for the time being, I will continue calling them villains, but I want you to start, every time you hear me say villains, I want you to change that word in your mind and say teachers. Because every villain is a teacher. It teaches us so much more than we can learn going to school. And this is, yes, some of these are people outside of you that are expressing themselves in the ways that you wish they didn't, but it's not up to you to change them. You got to learn to accept people as they are and things as they are, and dissect and figure out what's in it for you. What's the lesson in each one for you from each experience that you have? What's in it for you? You can't change people. You can't change circumstances more often than not, but what you can change is how you perceive them, is how you view them, how you interpret them. You can see things as happening to you, or you can see things as happening for you. That family member that might be triggering you each and every time, they're not aware that you have this trigger within you. They don't know that that you have all these buttons all over you, and they're just like pushing and pushing on these buttons. They're not aware of them. And at the same time, even if they are aware of them, it's up to you to diffuse and disconnect those triggers, those buttons. And you do so by understanding what that trigger is, because it's a teacher, it's a villain. Understanding what each villain is telling you, and then reframe it. Recondition yourself in a way of someone is triggering you, that trigger is not going to get pushed, that it will be a reminder. For example, if you want to be more patient and someone is triggering your patience and you find yourself being and behaving in impatient ways, then what is it teaching you? It's teaching you to be more patient. So what does being more patient look like to you, feels like to you, sounds like to you? And practice that in the moment. Use that trigger as a reminder to practice that lesson. For me, being in the practically immobile state over the weekend, it was reminding me to just be present with myself and welcome in the rest and allow others to help me and do things for me that it's not that I couldn't do them. Some of these things, yes, I couldn't do myself because I was practically immobile, but why not allow someone to help? Why not allow someone to feel like they're contributing to me and to my life and to my temporary discomforts as I would do for them? If that was somebody else in my life, which it has been, I did everything I could to make sure that they're comfortable and took care of them. And this is now my time to receive. So my lesson was, the biggest one was to accept the help and support and accept being taken care of instead of always taking care of everyone else in my life. I've learned a lot, and this was like an exam. Now, Yana, you learned a lot. Let me see if you can actually pass this test, pass this exam. Let me make your back hurt and give you that pain, excruciating pain, and see how well you do on this exam with everything you have learned. And like I said, Sunday I had a momentary lapse of the suffering creeping back in, but it was momentary. It was a great reminder to, no, I'm okay. This is not how I want to be. This is not how I want to be living my life. So let's take a moment, take a breather, calm myself down, and see how I want to move forward with this day and the rest of the weekend. So here are your villains. A lot of these you guys are already aware of. The first one is going to be your inner critic. And that is the voice inside your head that constantly criticizes you and judges you. Until you face that inner critic and you befriend that inner critic, it will not stop criticizing you and judging you. It undermines your self-confidence. And it perpetuates the self-doubt. And you don't like that villain. I know you don't. Nobody likes that villain. Until you understand that that villain, that inner critic, is your teacher. So the next one you're familiar with, that one is going to be fear. When it comes to fear, there's so many different directions that fear can take you, but it really comes down to your fear of failure, fear of success even, right? Fear of failure and fear of success. And then when you're successful, then you're going to be going back from success to failure, because when you become successful, you fear of losing it all and failing. And then when you're fearing failure, you're in turn fearing success because you're going to fail again. And fear of the unknown. And you know what? Part of my throat is like flumming up now. It's cold down here, as all basements are colder during this warm season because the heat rises and everything else stays cold. The fear of change. The fear of change is the one that creates inaction, creates analysis paralysis. It creates self-sabotage. That one is a massive one, where and procrastination, where you're going to avoid taking things, you're going to avoid taking action, you're going to procrastinate, and you're going to self-sabotage in ways of, you're trying to become this individual, this person, and you're just not going to show up for yourself. You're not going to do those things. You're sabotaging yourself and your growth and your progress because of those internal villains that you have and the external villains that are reminding you of your internal villains. Another one, another internal villain. And remember, every time I say villain, you rephrase it in your own mind as teacher. And the reason why I want you to do that is I want you to practice, because in the real world, when you go out there and you live in the world, you're not going to have people use the words that are empowering words. You're going to have people that are using disempowering words, like the villain. And when people are using these types of words and you're hearing them and you're just allowing those words to go in, you get programmed. But by you hear that word and you practice to change that word into a teacher. And every time you hear someone say negative things, it's not up to you to change their language, to change their vocabulary. Because if you start doing that, these people are gonna just say, stop correcting me, stop fixing me, right? It's not your place. But what you can do is you can do so within your world, within your mind. So that's why I'm having you practice. Change that word that I say out loud as a villain, but change it in your mind to a teacher, to start to reframe the negativity into positivity, right? Villain versus teacher. So another villain that is residing within you is that negative self-talk, that persistent those persistent negative thoughts and those beliefs that you have about yourself, that you have learned and picked up from the external world throughout your life, little by little, you unconsciously started to believe them. But the beauty in the things that we believe in is that beliefs can be changed. And you know your true self. And that's why those things that you believe about yourself, they don't feel good, because you know your true self is not those things. And that's why it doesn't feel good within you. And the goal here on this journey that's called your life, that leads you into self-mastery, is whenever you don't feel good, to go within and understand why, and then reframe and rewire yourself in ways that feel right and feel authentic to you. And in doing so, you will change those belief systems as well. And it's actually important to understand what they are, because if you don't understand what they are, if you don't know what they are, how can you change them? How can you reframe and rewire them if you don't understand what they are? And they are deeply rooted within you. And each one is like a tree, right? I was explaining to my son, we had a conversation this weekend about the root of the tree. He thought that the root of the tree would be just, not necessarily thought, but trees that you pull out when they're young, it's really just one root and the little branches are not there. But I was telling him, like, you know what, if you look at the tree and what you see above the tree, right, you see the branches and all that, if you flip it upside down, that is essentially what the root system is. The only difference is that the tree can only grow so much on the outside, whereas in the ground it can grow so much deeper and it spreads everywhere. And that's why a little baby tree can pull out really easily. It doesn't have strong roots. But a mature tree is practically impossible to just pull out. And this is why change is so hard for us mature trees, because each of us has roots that are so deeply embedded into the world through our experiences that we're holding on to a lot of these things. And a lot of the things that we're holding on to are limiting us and we're not even aware of. Do you know how many people in the world are fighting for their limitations? And do you know how many of them are actually aware consciously that they're fighting for their limitations? I can't tell you a number because I don't know. All I can say is most of the people that I have conversations with, they're fighting for their limitations and they are not aware of them. But some people are no longer fighting for their limitations, while others, they fight for their limitations, but they realize they're fighting for their limitations, and then they're changing and shifting. Can you guess which ones are living a happier life? Which ones have less villains in their life? The ones that don't fight for their limitations. Those that might also fight for their limitations and then recognize that they're fighting for the limitations and then stop fighting and just move forward. Another villain is perfectionism. How many of you are perfectionists? Raise your hand up if you're a perfectionist. I know I am still a perfectionist, but it's one of those battles that I get to choose consciously once I become conscious that I am being a perfectionist right now, and I get to choose if I want to be a perfectionist or not. Sometimes I do, while most of the time I don't, because it just is not going to benefit me in the long run. And it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes: done is better than perfect. And by me trying to do everything myself, I'm also taking opportunities from others to learn or experience something, especially when it comes to the kids. So with perfectionism is really comes down to the unrealistic desire to be perfect in all aspects of life. Or at some point it's all aspects of life, and then little by little it's some aspects of life or some experiences or some things that you're doing that you want to be perfect at. And when it comes to building a business or building a life, practically everyone is a perfectionist, and that's why most people won't start, because they want to figure out everything and know everything and be perfect before they start. And it's just not how the universe works. That's not how life works either. We get ready in the process of doing. And if you are trying to figure everything out before you start and you're trying to be perfect, you are going to experience stress, you're going to experience anxiety, and you're going to experience overwhelm and burnout. Because perfection itself is an illusion. It does not exist. It is a story or an expectation that we make up in our minds that tells us this is what perfect is. And everyone has a different story that they're telling themselves of what perfect is. And they set this bar for perfection that it's great to have. Don't get me wrong. It's good to have a bar of this is what perfect is. But it's also the attachment to reaching that. That is what makes people feel bad. It's not the bar itself, it's the attachment, the expectation of I will do this when I am here, when I'm perfect. Some of you might want to do live videos, and you're not ready to do a live video because you want to be a perfect communicator. You want to be perfect on camera. You want to look perfect, or whatever reason that is holding you back from getting started. Just start. Just do it. Yes, you have this imaginary bar, but in order for you to get there, you're going to get there only through practice, through doing. And then at the same time balancing with being, not just always doing and doing. Another one is imposter syndrome. And when it comes to the imposter syndrome, it's the feeling of being a fraud, of being fake, despite the evident success. Focusing on the negative versus focusing on the positive. Focusing on the negative internal world that those roots that you have been conditioned to hold on to things, that a lot of it is in the dark, instead of what's in it for me, what's the good in this experience, or in this villain. What am I learning, and not how am I failing? This imposter syndrome, of course, is going to create anxiety. It's going to cause you fear of being exposed as incompetent, as you're not good enough, as a failure. But the only people that will judge you in those negative ways are the people that are not even trying themselves, that are not doing the things that you're doing, that are not putting themselves out there, that are avoiding risk at all costs. Meanwhile, you're the one that is taking the risk. You're the one that is putting yourself out there. You're the one that is doing those things that everybody else is dreaming of doing. And you got tired of dreaming, and you decided, I'm not going to dream anymore. I'm going to start doing them because I want to live my life this lifetime and not another lifetime. I don't want to have this or this or this regret at the end of my life. I want to enjoy my life and want to do all these things that are scary and uncomfortable. And even though I know I'm going to fail, but I'm going to learn a lot from my failure. We learn from our failures. We don't learn very much from our success. We learn from our success, but nowhere near as much as we learn from our failures. And instead of being terrified and petrified of those things and feeling like an imposter, reminding yourself that those who judge negatively, because one of the things that you'll experience when you are dealing with that imposter syndrome is that fear of judgment from everyone else and what they're going to think about you. But remind yourself that you're doing the things that they're terrified of doing, and this is where that judgment is coming from them. Okay? Procrastination is another villain. You know this one, right? This one probably feels like a best friend. The habit of delaying tasks and decisions. That's what procrastinating is, where you are either not doing the tasks, or you're delaying starting those tasks, or you're not making a decision because it's easier not to make a decision, because once you make a decision, that means you got to take action, and you just don't want to take the action yet. And as you can imagine, this results in missed opportunities and, of course, an increased amount of stress, anxiety, and possibly even depression, and then leads into self-sabotage as well. Another one would be limiting beliefs, which are deep, those roots that we're talking about. This is where your beliefs are that limit you. If you thought yourself as a human that is rooted in the ground, as a tree, you can't fly. So you feel like you're completely grounded and you're holding on to these beliefs that you cannot fly. Now, I'm not talking about actual like flying like a bird. I'm talking about flying as in a way of feeling free. Those of us who want to be a bird and live a life as a bird, it's not living life as a bird. It's the interpretation that we carry when it comes to what life is like for a bird, and feeling completely free to go anywhere and be anywhere you want, right? So when it comes to your life, when it comes to your life, there's so many different parts of your life. Even when it comes to your business, that you feel like you can't fly, you can't lift off the ground, that you are stuck where you are. But that is just one or many of these villains that are keeping you grounded and rooted where you are. And until you start taking those roots out and identifying what they are and why they're holding you back, nothing will change. Hey, Rebecca, how are you doing, beautiful? Rebecca says, I'm not sure if I am a perfectionist. Possible. And it says, I love that. Okay. my phone is about to die, so I'm gonna have to wrap this up, and that's why I left my phone not charging, so that way I'll have to get this done really quickly. And then another one is resentment and anger. I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory, where you're holding on to the past stories, past experiences, and it's holding you hostage in your mental prison. Guilt and shame, self-explanatory, and comparison. Comparitis. There's a good way to compare, and there's a bad way to compare. And you got to figure out what those are. But for now, because my phone is about to die and I want to make sure that this is posted and it doesn't delete within 30 days, that's all I have for you guys. Thank you very much for being on here with me. I would love to hear, what do you believe is your biggest villain right now that is residing within you and holding you hostage, and not allowing you to either build a life or build a business that you are dreaming of, or experience the things that you want to experience. So let me know down below. Otherwise, I will see you next Tuesday at 11:30 on my personal page for another story time with myself, Yana Kasperczak, or maybe I'll see you live tomorrow in our Facebook group, Heal the Unicorn, Emotional Healing and Spiritual Growth for Women, where Bethany and I go live every Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time with a podcast called Heal the Unicorn. And we bring everything to you to help you to heal the brokenness that you might feel inside and live the life that you actually want to live. So that is all. Thank you very much. And until we see each other next time. Bye. Have an amazing the rest of your day. Bye.